Welcome back to Transfer Winners and Losers, everybody. Before we start, we have to say a big congratulations to the US women's team for winning the World Cup, to Brazil for winning Copa America, and to Mexico for winning the Gold Cup. Really great scheduling to have all three of those finals on the same day. Nice work. But we are here to talk about transfers. And the big one over the weekend, the one everybody's chatting about on Twitter, Paul Pogba, because Mino Raiola has been running his fat mouth again.
Yeah, but before we talk about him, how was your weekend?
Yeah, I'd say solid 5 out of 10. Didn't really do much. What about you?
Well, went to ladies at the races at Leicester, lost a fistful of dollars on the GGs, and then had a bath the next morning to sweat out the hangover and almost went through floor. Had to get an emergency plumber out.
I did see the drippage.
Yeah, he wanted 300 quid to fix the old leakage. Got him down to 175, so
Wheeler dealer.
I'm our first winner. No,
Redknapp.
it's Paul Pogba. The talking point returns, guys. And Paul Pogba returns to the headlines. Joe, you must be doing your absolute heeding right now because Mino Raiola, pretty ballsy, pretty abrasive as per usual with his comments, telling the Times that everyone within the club, from the manager to the owner, knows that Paul's wishes is to move on. We are in the process of that.
Great.
Marca backing up these claims as well, saying that Real Madrid and Juventus are using these, new findings, let's say. I mean, it's probably the worst kept secret in football that he wants to go, to lowball Manchester United, and they're estimated to start bidding at £80 million, which is less than what Batiste want for Giovanni Lo Celso.
Yeah, well, they're not going to get that, though.
Round the chops.
A ridiculous bid.
That is. And of course, that will subsequently be rejected, and they've said, United, that is, that they won't accept anything less than £160 million. United would also, they've also stipulated they'd have to bring someone in before they let him go, someone of that calibre. Not many people out there. No. Let's get your perspective on it, and very quickly, because people, criticise us for being Manchester United daily, but of course this is the most interesting news this week. What is your take on this?
Look, we spoke about him on the podcast at length. I think Man United have to keep him, but if he is going to kick up a fuss, and there was chat that he wasn't even going to go on the plane with the travelling squad on tour, then he has to get out the club immediately. If he doesn't want to be there, f*** him off. But Manchester United are facing an uphill battle to replace him because he is one of the best midfielders in the world, and we have to get £150 million plus for him. Simply have to.
Yeah.
He's that level of player. I mean, if Coutinho's going at, 140?
Pretty much, yeah.
There's no way Pogba goes for less than that, surely. Although having said that, I think Man United have only sold 4 players for over 15 million in about the last 5 years, which is a pretty damning indictment. Nevertheless, some of the names we're linked with are, I think, a step lower, but might suit. Might help us balance out the midfield a little bit better. The names like Giovanni Lo Celso, who we're all big advocates of, I think offers a slightly better balance to midfield than Paul Pogba, who definitely wants to go forward, and Man United can't really accommodate that because the rest of our midfielders aren't good enough.
Right, okay.
In the right system, Pogba obviously far superior to Lo Celso, but he can't have that freedom at Man United because the rest of our team just aren't good enough. So maybe Lo Celso offers a little bit better balance. I think he's got an €88 million buyout clause, which Man United should be all over if they do want to get a player in order to let Pogba go. The links over the weekend were pretty heavy with Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, though. Sport Media Set claiming that Lazio sporting director Iglo Ter had actually travelled to England, I think to London, to meet with Manchester United in order to hash out a deal. They're more keen to sell him abroad than domestically. Right. I think they're nervous about losing him to a Juventus.
Yeah, I don't think anyone comes in from domestically, do they? I think they know not to.
Well, Juventus, rumours weren't there a couple of weeks ago that Juventus had agreed personal terms with him.
Right, okay.
And that he was all heart set on moving there, and that Inter Milan were very interested in bringing him into the club as well in order to get Nainggolan out. Obviously, over the weekend, that news has happened that Icardi and Nainggolan are no longer wanted by Conte.
Yeah, so it'd be odd from Lazio because it makes their bid to become a Champions League club once more even further,
So I think they're more keen to get him abroad than they are to sell him domestically. It might take a slightly lower fee because of that. And if you kind of compare the two, I think I personally would rather have Lo Celso than I would Milinkovic-Savic. I got pretty hammered on Twitter for saying that yesterday. Right, okay. But they do profile quite similar. If you line them up, you know, in terms of XG and expected assists last season, I still think Sergej Milinkovic-Savic was putting up something like 0.48, 0.46, something like that, which is pretty similar to Lo Celso. You know, he was getting upwards of 0.5 last season, so still pretty impressive. Still putting up 2.5 tackles and interceptions, over 2 key passes, over a dribble and a half a game in a Lazio side that's similar to Betis, struggled at times last season. I think he would definitely improve at a better club. Whether or not Man United is that better club remains to be seen, because PSG apparently also interested, although I don't know why, given that they've bought Sarabia in, they've bought Ander Herrera in, there's rumours they're bringing Rafa Guerrero in. I would be very surprised if he was to move there. Nevertheless, it's clear that Man United want to bring players in before letting Pogba go, because the worst case scenario is in 2 or 3 weeks he leaves for Real Madrid, and that means we've got a week to do business. Which
if
will
Neymar
be disastrous.
goes back to Barcelona and Paul Pogba moves on to Real Madrid, this will be the best window
By a
ever,
mile.
full stop.
Because there's going to be PSG.
/wow.
Have it right. If they lose Neymar, PSG are going to do a madness.
Yeah.
Because they are going to get so much money.
Should we move on to our first winner?
Yeah, come on,
I
let's
think
go
you've
on to
smashed
it.
it out of the park there. Paul Pogba, done. First winners. On to our first winners then, and it is Tottenham. This comes from White Hart Games, and apparently Daniel Levy not satisfied with bringing in Jack Clarke and Tanguy Ndombele for a combined £63 million last week, has his beaded eyes set on 2 more transfers. Chalk and cheese with this time last year. Tottenham fans must be very bloody excited. Now, according to Corriere dello Sport, not the most reliable outlet, the Lily Whites are in for Nicola Zaniolo, Roma's 20-year-old Italian prodigy. Now, supposedly, the bid would be between 15 to 18 million euros and would include Toby Alderweireld, who is likely to leave this summer either way, should media chatter be, you know, taken as gospel. Now, the twice-capped Italian only joined the Giallorossi last campaign from Inter Milan as part of the Nyangland deal.
Awful.
It was him, Zaniolo, David Santon and Cash. Didn't really work out for the Nerazzurri, that one, because I think the Belgian player is moving on already. And Zaniolo had a breakthrough campaign, didn't he? 36 games in all competitions, finished with 6 goals and 2 assists to his name. 2.4 shots per 90, 1.4 from inside the area, 0.9 key passes, and an impressive 2.1 dribbles and a 54% completion rate. An expected goals and assists per 90 of 0.34, which is about league average. But these numbers are very, very good considering, like we said, his first real senior campaign. Now, if they can get Zaniolo for that price, 1, we'd be extremely surprised. 2, where do they play him? Because he played most of his time in the number 10 role. He also played a third of his games out on the right, I'm led to believe. So maybe they'd put him out there. Lucas Moura might fall foul to that move, but Dele Alli's there, of course, isn't he? As that second striker / number 10. So he's not going to be giving up many minutes next campaign. Bit of versatility there. He's the right age, the right profile, but that would signal an end to Giovanni Lo Celso as well.
Yeah, well, the rumours about Lo Celso have kind of dried up a little bit, obviously, since he's been at the Copa America. You'd be thinking that when he returns, they might pick up a bit of speed, but if you look at some of the other players they're linked to, Tottenham Hotspur, at the moment, if you look at the likes of Dani Olmo, who plays his football out in Zagreb, also that sort of right winger come number 10 hybrid player, then that would signal to me that they are looking for an Eriksen replacement, given that Christian Eriksen likes to operate in that 10 space. If he's there and Dele Alli's there, where on earth does a Zaniolo or an Olmo play their football? Because I just don't see it happening. They've got a right winger in Lucas Moura who can play inside. They've got Heung-min Son who can play on the right and then come inside. I'd be very surprised if either of these players joined without Eriksen leaving. I think Lo Celso makes far more sense because he can play a lot deeper. We saw him at PSG operating as a defensive midfielder. We will chat a little bit about Olmo because obviously saw a lot of success at the under-21s with Spain this summer and kind of put his name back into the headlines. Of course, a Barcelona graduate originally and then went out to Croatia to play his football, which you've kind of got to take your hats off to. And he's done pretty well out there. I think Zagreb finished 24, 25 points clear at the top of the Croatian Premier League this season, so not a bad term, and also obviously well in the Europa League. I think they crashed out to Benfica eventually, and João Felix. But he's played 77 games in all competitions over the last 2 seasons, won back-to-back Croatian Player of the Year awards. So you can see where the hype comes from, and Tottenham clearly identifying that role as needed if Eriksen was to leave. I also like how Tottenham are going after this sort of young player. I've also seen them linked to Dani Ceballos. You know, Dani Ceballos, Giovanni Lo Celso, Zaniolo, Olmo, all in that sort of 20 to 22-year-old bracket. That it should be exciting if you're a Tottenham fan. Much better to be linked to them than Gareth Bale, in my opinion, which was kind of what was happening at the start of the summer.
Aren't they? Yeah.
So I think Tottenham Hotspur fans, plenty of reasons to be excited. If you get any of those 4 names, I think you could well be biggest Premier League winners this summer.
And by that he means 3rd.
Yeah.
Our first loser comes from Neratsaurus, and it's Mauro Icardi, because this week it was confirmed by Inter Milan chief executive Beppe Marotta that Mauro Icardi is no longer part of the club's plans. Now, he's had a topsy-turvy season, to say the least, hasn't he? He was suspended by the club for over a month. He tried to facilitate a move away. He was forced to train with the reserves. He was stripped of his captaincy. The fractious relationship with the Ultras continues. He also recorded his worst Serie A goal tally in 5 years with 11, having scored just twice in 13 league appearances in this calendar year. But if he were to leave, it would bring to an end to an otherwise excellent 6-year stint at the San Siro, where he scored 124 goals in 219 appearances. And Incredible. He had them on his back for a lot of that time. So that's an average of nearly 0.6 goals per game, which is up there with elite strikers. But it's clear who Antonio Conte wants to bring in as his replacement. That is Romelu Lukaku. He's not been shy about that, has he? Inter have already lodged a bid of 60 million euros after a 2-year loan
Jokers!
Spell. So I think Inter are pretty revolutionary in creating that format.
Revolutionary or have no money.
Yeah, I mean, that FFP dodging kind of formula. But according to multiple sources, the deal is now at deadlock as Inter are struggling to get Icardi off the books. How do you sell someone as problematic behind the scenes as Mauro Icardi? He's going to be demanding big wages. I'm guessing if they can get the same sort of fee for him that they're going to have to pay for Lukaku, Inter will be happy enough to let him go for that amount. But yeah, he's long courted by Juventus, but they don't seem to be that keen now. Of course, they've got Higuain on the books, they've got Ronaldo on the books. They can't be adding Icardi to that wage list. But it looks like they might have shipped another big player on who we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Radija Nainggolan, well, they're trying to ship him on. In the same statement that they released about Mauro Icardi, they also said Nainggolan is no longer wanted by the club after a pretty poor season, I think. And it's fairly obvious why they want to get rid of him. Again, nobody wants him though. Like, who wants Icardi right now? Because he's not in the mould of the modern striker anymore, Icardi, and most systems are built around this sort of dynamic number 9. And he just isn't that. The only club that I could have seen him joining this summer is Chelsea, and Chelsea have a transfer ban. He's in the Coutinho paradox. That's where he is. Just a good player, but doesn't fit anybody's system. Okay. So I just don't know where Icardi can go. And Nainggolan's in the same issue. Like, there was plenty of rumours over the weekend about a supposed swap deal being talked about with Manchester United. By the sound of it, they wanted, I think, Nemanja Matic in, Radija Nainggolan plus 10 million out, which just would make no sense for Manchester United, given that Nemanja is effectively our only recognised defensive midfielder, as average as he is, and Nainggolan is going backwards as a footballer and doesn't fit the mould we're trying to sign.
He's put up very good defensive numbers in the past, but has of course played the latter parts of his career in a more attacking role. And like you said, he's so injury prone. Who's going to want him? Yeah,
I don't think he's going to go to a PSG, given some of their midfield recruitment this summer and how good that's been. Certainly not like a Juventus. It's going to be a real step down, in my opinion, wherever he ends up going. And even if Matic was to come in, I don't really know how that suits the 3-4-3 Conte's going to look to deploy. Does he sit alongside Brozovic and you're just hoping he's going to just kind of tick the ball over? For me, that is an absolute non-starter as a swap deal with Nemanja Matic. Can't see it happening. And that would also kind of have to spark up more conversations about Lukaku going to Inter. I don't think United want to deal with Milan at all. Nobody really does, because they've got no funds, so everything's a 2-year or a swap deal.
Yeah, especially when you've got Alexis Sanchez to get off the books as well, and you're probably going to have to facilitate the same sort of deal for him, just to get him out the door. You've got your own Nyan Glands, you've got your own Acardis, haven't you? So,
absolutely loads of them. Yeah. I just think that Inter are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place in a similar way as a lot of players this summer. You know, there's plenty of good players that are available, Coutinho, Bale, Icardi, but they don't fit systems anymore. They don't fit the way top managers want to play, or they're too injury prone in the case of Gareth Bale. So right now, I cannot see Nainggolan or Icardi leaving, and I think it's going to harm Inter pretty badly, despite the fact he is one of the world's best strikers.
Agreed.
Still, so not a good weekend for Inter Milan.
Our final winners then this week are Manchester City, killing the transfer market, so much so that this was sent in by a Man United fan apparently. Brilliant. At He-Man United, unless it's, of course, He-Man United, and he's a fan of the old cartoon series. You know, fair play on both fronts. Yeah, the citizens killing the game, like I said, plugging their only 2 weak spots by signing Atletico Madrid's Rodri and re-signing Angelino from PSV. He's a left-back, of course, for a combined £68 million. Angelino only costing 5.35 of that. So pretty substantial bid for Rodri, but well worth it in our opinion. And we do talk about him on Sunday Vibes as well, so apologies if we go back over any well-trodden ground. So let's start with Rodri, who is seen as the long-term successor to Fernandinho, rightly so as well. And Manchester City must be delighted with the way this has panned out, because they went in for Jorginho, they went in for Fred, and now they've probably got the better player of all three, or at least the player who suits their system the most. Of course, Jorginho, I believe, not very fairly treated at Chelsea. Will probably fare better at Juventus. Sarri will inevitably bring him over, but alas, let's leave that. And let's go back to Rodri. Some of his numbers last season, very, very impressive. 91% pass accuracy from 57 passes per game. So he's an absolute metronome. I'm guessing a lot of those passes wouldn't have been as ambitious as Fernandinho's, because, of course, Atletico Madrid don't have as much possession, do they, on a game-to-game basis. And he's probably not launching it to his forwards. It's that slow burn for Atletico Madrid, isn't it? But he did manage 3 goals and 1 assist from that deep-lying position. That was exactly the same goal involvements as Fernandinho. And that's for a team who only scored 55 goals in comparison to City's 95. So percentage-wise, you're doing all right as Rodri. His deep progression's far lower than Fernandinho. Again, goes back to what we're saying, not as ambitious maybe in possession. Probably not asked to do as much as Fernandinho. I don't think many people in world football are, though. 6.24 deep progressions to the Brazilians' 10.84. That's a monstrous
That'll
number.
go up so much this season.
Yeah, but he is completing more dribbles, around 0.7 to 0.3. And what we've determined there is that neither one likes to dribble. As for Angelino, the 22-year-old returns after just a year away and looks a much more well-rounded player, really developed at PSV. So 3.6 tackles and interceptions and 2 key passes per game, resulting in 10 assists in all competitions from left-back. So really impressive from him on that flank, and he played over 3,000 minutes, helped PSV finish second. I think their domestic form went a little bit under the radar into Ajax's, and his energetic play should suit that left flank in Pep Guardiola's system really well, averaging 2 key passes per game, and 1.4 dribbles. So a very useful little reserve to have. However, a little bit puzzling what he's going to do with Zinchenko as a result if Angelino does play left back, and a little bit puzzling what he's going to do with Mendy if Zinchenko stays at left back. It's a bit confusing as to how that left flank's going to line up at the start of next campaign.
Yeah, I don't get it. Don't get the Angelino move at all. Obviously, Rodri's a fabulous signing, but I think there was more need for right-back cover than there was left-back cover. I don't think Kyle Walker had a particularly good season last year, so a little bit surprised they didn't go heavier in for João Cancelo. Of course, that might still happen, but the Angelino move is puzzling, given that Zinchenko, I think, had an excellent season. Mendy is returning now to what City fans will hope is 100% full fitness, and Fabian Delph is still at the club. Yes, he is being linked with moves away, but right now he's still at the club. So unless he's thinking that Angelino's going to become the backup, then Zinchenko's going to become that sort of hybrid centre-mid fullback role that Fabian Delph has occupied, and then Delph is going to get moved on. We've seen Everton linked to him quite heavily over the last week. I think that was in the Independent for about £16 million.
I wouldn't mind that.
Still
for
only
16
29,
yeah.
and I believe that would mean that Manchester City turn a profit on him as well, which is decent business given that he's been quite a good servant to them over the years. But if you're Zinchenko, you must be looking at this thinking, you know, I couldn't have done much more last season in that left-back role. And, you know, nearly 4 tackles and interceptions per 90, nearly a key pass per 90, 3 assists, and he's not going to get minutes at attacking midfield. I can't see him getting minutes at defensive midfield with Rodri's arrival. Now Angelino's joined. Where does his future lie? For me, Angelino is a really puzzling move unless Pep is going to work some magic and make him into a right-back and they're going to shift Danilo on. I'm really, really confused. Where do you guys at home think that Angelino fits into this Pep system? Is he going to be a right-back? Is he going to play as a classic left-back? Does this signal the end for Zinchenko? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Final loser then comes from Nikhil_Wadwa11, and it's Newcastle. And I'll be frank, I had to trim this section down, not short of reasons why the Toon Army are in the bin this week. I mean, let's start with Rafa Benitez joining Chinese outfit Dalian Yifang over extending his contract there. Did you see the quotes about him talking to the architect, trying to improve the Newcastle training ground, and all that happened over 2 years was a fresh lick of paint on like 3 walls? Yeah. Pretty much sums up the Ashley reign, doesn't it, that one? They've also lost their best player in Ayoze Perez. He's gone to Leicester for £30 million on a 4-year deal. 12 goals.
To the 16 mil? What happened there? What was
16?
The fee in the end?
Yeah, 30 was his release clause and they ended up paying it. I'm not sure where the 16 came from. I think 16 would have been much more realistic. They got 30, 12 goals, 2 assists for the Spaniard in 18-19, meaning he was involved in 31% of Newcastle's league goals. That's about the same as Harry Kane at Tottenham. Now, the fee is very fair. I want to stress that. However,
do you think?
30 mil?
For Perez?
I think, yeah, it's generous.
Very generous.
As in 16's fair, but if you're a Newcastle fan, you're only really happy you're getting 30 if you've got other prominent attackers at the club, but they haven't. He's worth much more than £30 million to Newcastle fans.
Do you think?
He was pretty much, supercharging their attack, along with your boy Salomon Rondon. And if you'd read the bit of the script I've done for you, then you'd be agreeing with me.
But I just feel like all of it, like, he just went through one purple patch. That was it. He scored 9 in 9, didn't he?
But no one else did. I mean, he contributed to 14 goals, and I think the 3rd highest scorer at the club was Shaw on 3. I think only 3 Newcastle players got over 3 goals. Anyway, back to the Newcastle ranks, because the only traditional forward left at the club is Yoshiniro Muto, who scored 1 goal in 5 starts and 12 substitute appearances last term after joining from Mainz for £9 million.
Hell of a player.
Averaging 0.4 shots per 90 as a striker.
Hell of a player, mate.
That feels bad. The rest of the attacking quarters, Almiron made a very promising start, of course, then got injured. Kennedy, Ritchie, Hoselu, Atsu and Murphy. This is so championship,
Dwight Gale coming back though, don't forget about him.
So they scored 6 league goals between them last campaign and took 3.6 shots in the box together combined. That's not much better than Sergio Aguero's standard 2.5 and probably just as good as Sergio Aguero when he's having a good day. Not great for 6 players. That is it. Not great output. Yeah, and it now looks like they've lost Salomon Rondon as well. He scored 11, going to the same team as Benitez. Rafa wants to bring the big Venezuelan in for his release clause, which is £16 million. He contributed to 18 goals actually last term, so arguably more important to Perez than Perez, sorry. But the pair of them pretty much kept them up. Yeah. And now they're losing those pair and the manager. Just mind-boggling.
Yeah, they cannot lose. They cannot lose them both. They really cannot lose them both because they were little and large last year. They were the Premier League's very own Peter Crouch, Jermaine Defoe 2.0 to some level. I think they were the 2nd most productive partnership in the Premier League last season. The first was Wilson and Fraser, right, at Bournemouth, who also might well be split up if the bids from Arsenal are to be believed. And I think you're right. I think it was a kind of simpatico partnership. I think Rondon was winning over 4 aerial duels per 90, which is really impressive. And then Perez, purple patch player, purple patch Perez. That's what will get trending. The triple P. He did pick up on the scraps, didn't he? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they could reject, like, even if he didn't have a release clause, I think £30 million is a lot of money for Perez. He's an okay player.
But it's not when you're then relying on Christian Atsu.
This is the problem, is that they have absolutely cool left.
Is that even his name, Christian? I don't even know much about Atsu.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle only scored 42 goals last season, which is the 5th worst in the league. And without them, next season, Perez and Rondon, they're nailed on to go down unless they bring in a worldie striker. Like, you're looking at teams like West Ham paying 50 mil for Maxi Gomez over the weekend. Newcastle aren't even in that ballpark. They're not even in the same city as bids like that right now.
Literally not in the same city either.
I just don't know who they're going to target. In the Ashley era, they've sold Wijnaldum, Mitrovic, Marino, Tovan, Sissoko and Perez. They've bought in Almiron, who does look like an interesting little prospect. Key on a free. Good work from your boys. Rondon on a loan. Atsu, 6 mil. Diame and Isaac Hayden, who of course had his Twitter account hacked over the weekend. And all the hacker did was tweet Ashley out and abuse to Newcastle and the owners, which he obviously has claimed as a hacking. Wouldn't surprise anyone if that was just Hayden. And then pissed off and then literally went, oh, my value hacked. Absolutely disastrous scenes. And disastrous scenes for Newcastle as a whole because the club's...
It is a sinking ship. The Toon Army are...
Newcastle, Sheffield United, Norwich. Down next season.
I think that, so last season by expected points, they finished 2 points above Cardiff. I think they were comfortably the 4th or 5th worst team in the division. And they'll just be very thankful for the fact that Sheffield United and Norwich are coming up. The only way they're going to stay in the league is if teams are just hideous and don't strengthen significantly as they come up.
Maybe we should put some respect on Timu Puki's name. It's a new 4-year contract, you know. I can definitely see him getting above 10 goals this season.
Cash.
I'll bet anyone, any amount of money, that Timu Puki don't score 15 league goals this season.
But this is the thing, like I was just articulating very poorly then, like those teams are strengthening. They've been better in the transfer market than Newcastle. Bringing in Phil Jagielka at this point is better than what Newcastle have done.
I mean, maybe.
P-Jags.
Maybe.
The quadruple P.
Okay, so that's it for this episode of Winners and Losers. But before people do anything else, what should they do next, Hamill?
They should go and check out the weekend's content on Euro Football Daily, which includes a scout report on 5 teams who are killing the transfer market.
Don't watch the glitch.
You know, it relates to this. Ignore the glitch halfway through. And the latest episode of Stat Wars. What else is on Football Daily? We need to talk.
Yeah.
You tried to out me as a flat earther.
Well, you shouldn't be a flat earther then. If you don't want to be outed as a flat earther, don't support the flat earth movement.
Just to clarify, I'm not a flat earther.
So he says.
Can't believe I've had to say that. Yeah. Embarrassing.
How does the water not fall off though, mate? Goodbye.